The S&P and Nasdaq finished the week at all-time highs, thanks in part to the economy, which is powering ahead. Today, we learned that activity in the first quarter was a lot stronger than expected, shaking off a rocky finish to 2018. The first read on gross domestic product grew at an annual rate of 3.2%, well above projections of 2.5%. In fact, it's the best start to a year since 2015. As you know, gross domestic product is the value of all goods and services produced in the U.S. Rising exports, falling imports, and higher inventory investment drove much of the growth. That helped offset weaker gains in consumer spending and business investment. And that report gave the major averages a lift. The Dow Jones Industrial Average was up 81 points, the Nasdaq added 27, and the S&P 500 gained 13. But it wasn't just the economy that investors were watching. Bob Pisani starts us off tonight.
Stock futures spiked early on a much stronger than expected read on first quarter GDP growth in the U.S. But disappointing results from Exxon and Intel weighed heavily on the Dow. Shares of Exxon, for example, slumped about 3%, had their worst day of the year after profits took a hit from poor refining, that's gasoline refining mostly, and chemical results. And the oil giant said that while crude oil prices have risen, they're still relatively low compared to prior periods. We're also seeing some signs of the China slowdown story really starting to take a toll on the earnings equation. So look at today. Intel slashed its full-year revenue outlook, largely blaming slower growth in China, saying customers were becoming more cautious and that they were seeing an acute deceleration, that's their words, in demand for chips in that region. Now, this follows similar comments made by other chip makers like Lam Research and Texas Instruments. But others have been more positive. For example, Ford CFO Bob Shanks said the Chinese economy seems to be stabilizing. And the luxury goods manufacturer Hermes said sales in China were actually accelerating. The bottom line is this. The U.S. economy continues to outperform, but global growth is still a problem. It's not clear if China is accelerating or decelerating, despite massive stimulus from its central bank. For Nightly Business Report, I'm Bob Pisani at the New York Stock Exchange.